Okay, so what I'm going to do first is open Final Draft. And I'm going to keep at least a couple of you open here so that if anything goes wrong, let's see, you can wave at me because I know that you are muted and I want to be sure that, let's see how we want to do that. We'll do it that way. I want to be sure that if you can't see something or if you can't hear something, if you will just wave your hands, if you can see who's in my little box. Hey, Carol. Then I can stop and be sure that our tech is all working. Okay, so I just opened up Final Draft on my computer, and it's going to bring up a default template. Now, if you can use that, although I don't recommend it. So we have developed in musicalwriters.com, we have a Final Draft template that is something I have put together. So at the close of this webinar, I'll send everyone an email, and it will have both a coupon code for 30% off a Final Draft, and I'll also include the template for free for that. So if you want to open that up and use it, we'll do that. And that's what I'm going to use today. So I'm going to X out of that. I'm going to go under File, and I'm going to go under Open. And you can see this is on my desktop. It's right over here, but it's also in my desktop here. I'm also working off a Mac, so it might look a little different if you're working off of a PC, but the menu should be relatively close. So I'm going to open up this. So this is Musical Writers Final Draft Musical Script Template. Okay, so here's where we're going to start. I'm going to go across this menu. Can you guys nod if you see that? Do you see the menu across the top? Okay, great. So I'm going to walk you through just some of the basic stuff. We're going to start with the View menu. I'm going to come back to File later. So we're going to start with View. So when you're working with a script, and these are very simple things, but when you're working with this script, there are 3 different ways that you can view it. One is the page view, which is what we're on right now. So it's going to show you, so if I were to go to a second page, Bill, yeah, Jane, there she goes, hey. Okay, you can see that as it goes to a new page, it will split it up what it will look like when it's printed. So that's the page view here. If you go to normal view, basically it's going to give you a line at the page break, but it won't show you the margins. Okay, so it'll just scroll on through. If you go to speed view, it's going to take out the page breaks. So it will just keep going. And you won't be able to see your page numbers. So if you want to just write and not worry about page numbers or anything like that, you just kind of want to go, then this is a good way to do it on speed view. I always do it on page view because I'm very visual. And I like to see my page numbers pop up. I like to see where the page breaks happen, kind of as I go. All right, so also under here, there are 2 things that we're not going to get into a lot. One is called the Bead Board. Now the Bead Board is just a grid. And this is almost like if you have a whiteboard or a bulletin board or a scratch piece of paper that you just want to put ideas on. So you'll see also, let me move that. You'll see also here is a Bead Board in the Toolbox. This is called the Toolbox. So this is the same thing as if you were to pick Bead Board here. So that's the Bead Board. And then this are your 3 script view. And you can see when I hover over that, it'll say normal view, page view, and speed view. So if I want to go back to my script, I can go there, or my Bead Board. Same thing under view here. The Bead Board, if I right click, so if anybody has joined, I hear something. So if anybody has joined lately, if you'll just be sure that you're muted. If I right click here, I can add a new beat, which if you don't know, a beat is just kind of a mark of action. So you're going to have a beat title. So let's say we say that Jane gets mad. I'm going to type that in, and then I'm going to click in here. And then I can expound on that. Jane gets mad because John was late. So that's just something that I think, okay, I want to be sure that I get that somewhere. So this is just where you can write down notes. Now you can use, on your keyboard, you can hit Command plus or minus to zoom in or out of this. So if I hit Command minus, I can shrink that down. If I hit plus, I can make my grid bigger. So that shows kind of how you can get more room. You can also resize this by dragging. So this is really just like sticky notes almost, okay? Now, if I right click and do new structure point, if you're familiar, we do a lot of, I do a lot of articles about structure, the 7 plot points. Now, there's not any rules in here that says you have to use the 7 plot points, but they're good to use. So if you were to say inciting incident, and then you could type that. That could be when Jane gets mad, or that could be John was late. Okay. You'll see that the structure box has a wider border than this one. Okay. We're going to come back to the beat board later. That's just where you can view it. If you go to scene view, you're going to see your scenes. You know what I'm going to do? Okay. Just for kicks, so you can see how these work. I'm going to go to my script. Now this is a script, an old script that we've been working on. So this is an old version. It's a full version of a show though. So I want to show you how the pages work. It is using the template that I was just showing you, but this is longer. Okay, so now if I go here and go to scene view, you can see all my scenes here. And I'll show you how to edit that. Over here, there's a thing called the Navigator, which is if you're comparing script writing software, I think the Navigator is probably one of my favorite things that Final Draft has. So if I click on this little thing here, this is gonna be the Scenes Navigator. I'm gonna put that down for a minute. And I'll drag it here just so it's easier to see. You can see here that I have the scene numbers. I have a title. So my title of my scene, I can put in here. And that corresponds to what's happening over here in this scene view. Okay, I'm gonna turn this back, make sure everybody is still with me. There we go. And I will come back to the Navigator later. We're just going to go through this menu first. We also have index cards. So these are also kind of like that beat board. It doesn't transpose from one to the other. So the things that I put on the beat board don't automatically go on an index card. But these are where you can write, you have index card script. So Act 1, Scene 1, this is my entire script that goes in Scene 1, which is, I go to script view, hold on. It's all of this that's in scene 1. It's gonna go on that card. If I go to the summary, back over here in my Navigator, here's my summary. You can see elves in, elves in. So that is where those cards go. And then this is just if you want to change how many cards you're seeing at once. You can see that I have 2 cards across there. Okay, now then, I'm gonna X out of that because it's in the way for right now. Let's go back to page view of our script. Now let's look at either split. The split here is the same thing as the split here. If you would like to check what's going on in this scene versus, click in it, another scene, you can split this view and you can scroll down and see a different scene. So that's what this split view is. You can also do that horizontally if you want to do it that way. And if you click in it, it'll isolate that one panel. Okay, so those are some viewing options on how to view what you're working in. Zoom, this is where you can zoom and make your make it bigger. It's also down here in the bottom left corner. These are also your zoom options. You can make it very small, or you can make it where you can read it. Okay, so that's view. That's really the only thing I'm going to go over in the view. Okay, format. Here's where we're going to get into some important things. Okay, so let me go to a good page here that's got some lyrics and some dialogue. That works. Okay, so here you can see in my script, this is something you're going to recognize. You see the character names, you see the actions, stage directions, you see some parentheticals. Here is lyrics. I think that's, and then here's dialogue. So all of those things are called elements. So up here under elements, now if you use the Final Draft Musical Writers template, these are already set for you. And when you load up a template, this is what changes. So if you go to elements, you can see apply a template here. And these are all the templates that are available that Final Draft comes already loaded with. Some of these you can download from various places on the internet and insert, but most of these come standard. So here are all of your different elements. Now you're not going to need all of these because Final Draft it's originally for film. So they have a lot of other things that they use that we as musical writers don't need. So the things that you do need are the scene headings. So a scene heading, let's go back to, that's the top of the scene. Let's see what, I'm gonna open up that other one because I've specified those. There. Okay. So you can see here, this is the template just in a generic form. You can see that there's a scene heading. Here is scene info. And you can also see down the bottom left here, there's a toggle that has all of your elements that are available. So if you want to change something, let's say that I want to change that to dialogue. I just select it and hit dialogue and it automatically changes it. But he's a character, so let's keep him there. So all of these things you can see action or stage directions. So the template is going to help you see how these are formatted. Like here is the song title, which looks like I need to fix that. That is not right. And these are lyrics. So let's go to the elements box again. If you want to adjust anything, if you're using a template, if you don't have the Final Draft template that we supply and you're just trying to use a guide, maybe you found you're either using our PDF that tells the margins and what should be caps and what shouldn't. If you're using maybe an article that you found, maybe you have a place that you're submitting to and they have very specific guidelines as far as margins or spacing or anything like that, and you need to change something, then you can go in here and let's say that the dialogue is what you need to adjust. You can change your font here. This is set for Times New Roman. You would just go to set font and you can see here's all your options on that. And you would just hit OK and it would change every piece of dialogue that you specify that you set as dialogue to whatever you set here. If you want to change let's say you want to change the paragraph, this is the alignment here. So if you need something to align right, you would select right. The spacing is the leading. So spacing is your line spacing. Space before, you can see here on the characters that there's a little bit more space between the character and the dialogue than there is between like above the character name than below. So space before is where you're going to set that if you want to space some things up. Here's your indents. You can change that. Another new thing, or another thing, not new, that you can do is if one of these needs to start a new page, for example, the scene heading. Every time I have a scene heading, I want that to start on a new page. I don't want the scene heading to just continue in the middle of a page where another scene ended. So scene heading is set to start a new page. So you can see in this one, I'm going to go back here to my Navigator, where you can see that at the end of scene 1, we have some space here because it's set to make a page break there. Now, a couple of things that you'll notice here is in my song title, which I have set, and I will go back and add that into that final draft template because I don't think that was in there. The song title on this particular script, you can see up here in my title, it says the York. This was a reading that we did. And so to make our full book for the actors and the director, we needed to put music in, you know, in the script after we copied everything. So in a regular script that's not set for a production, you wouldn't want a new page to start after the song title because you just want to go straight into your lyrics and whatever. You wouldn't want all this space. That's just wasting paper. But here we wanted to be sure that when the song title hit, the next page in their book was music. So that's why this one is set that way. So that's a place that you can set a page break. And then if you want to change that later, then you can go back and set song titles to not have a page break, and it'll kick all of that back up so that if you're just printing it for a rough copy to go over and you don't want all this extra space, then you would not use that page break. Okay, let's go back to elements. Okay, another thing under elements that you can do under that menu is, let's go to highlight characters. Let's say that you want to quickly glance through and see how many times your main character is in the script. I'm going to assign him a color and check his box. And then I can scroll through and it's going to highlight him everywhere that Ben is. Okay, so that's just something you can do if you want to kind of see. I'm sure there'd be other reasons for that. I don't really ever use that, but that's kind of a neat tool if you were wanting to see how many times a character was showing up visually. There's another way to do that in a different spot. Let me turn all that off. Okay. Okay, let's say that you're working on something and you want to show it to somebody else and you want to highlight it. You don't want it to highlight every time an element is used. You just want to highlight something. That's where this little thing to where you can adjust your fonts is. I wouldn't change any fonts. Please don't use anything besides Time or Courier. Times or Courier. All of these are just going to make a mess. If you want to highlight, you could go here. So if I wanted to send to my director and say, okay, everything that's yellow is a question mark, then I can highlight those things. So I'm going to make that back white. Okay. Really, all of these things are your font changes and your line changes that are only to use on something you've selected. If you want it to be universal, you're going to use elements, and that way it changes everything in there that uses that element. So these are not really something I would recommend you use because it's not consistent throughout the whole script. Okay, let's go to insert. Let's see what I'm going to do on that. Okay, script note. Let's go to that. I'm going to go back over here to the Navigator. So you can see this little grouping in the Navigator panel has scenes, which is this icon. It also has script notes, which is the little flag icon, and characters, which is the little person icon. Right now we're going to look at script notes. Let's say that, again, right here, I'm not sure this is what I want to do. I have a question about it. I'm going to add a script note there. So I can come to this menu and I can put script note and see it's going to flag it. So here I can put my note, not sure about this, or whatever you want to call it. And if you want to color code it, you've got some color coding options here. So if it's like something that's a major issue and you want to color code it red, you can do that. Then you can see here, it's color coded. So whereas the highlight, you didn't really get to say anything about it. It was just noted and highlighted. Here you can actually, or actually it was just highlighted. Here you can actually describe something. So it's like annotating a PDF, if you will. You can write whatever you need. And then in this little box, you can see where it is. You can see the date that it was created, what page it's on, if it's color coded. If you want to give it a name like characters, let's say that anything that has to do with characters is red, then you can see here, and you can see this one says elves. So apparently I had something before that I needed to address about the elves in 2018. So that was a while back. So that's how you use the little script note. A general note is in this same box. So this is a script note with the flag, and this is a general note with the little idea. So this is the same thing. It's just, it's not going to attach to a certain place in the script. It's just a general note that you want to make. Okay. Let's keep going from that. Okay, let's talk about our header and footer. This is something people always ask me about, because if you're not in Final Draft, it gets a little tricky if you're doing a script in Word or in some of the other software script writing programs, is doing page numbers. So to do these page numbers, you definitely have to have your elements set correctly. So my scene heading, remember, is what starts a new scene, and it also kicks it to a new page. Okay. So I'm going to go under header and footer. And under header, you can see here that I have scene number, page number. Here are your choices on how to put those. Now, some of these things you don't need. You can experiment with those if you want. But if you click in a place, and if I click on, so I clicked right here, and I click on page, it's going to put a page number on the left side. See, there went the page number. So now on every page that's there. I don't want that there. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to take that off. I'm going to delete. And remember how I did that. There we go. So you can see here that I just, I hit the tab and I put a scene number, then I inserted a dash and then a page number. So you can see here, oh, no, wait a minute. Why is it I-1-1? Okay, this is where the little key to doing that. So over here under production, you have scene numbers, edit scene number. Now it would be nice if there was just an automatic way to make this happen, but because it's a musical and we have act 1, scene 1, and we want to be able to see those, if I go to scenes and I come down here to my second act, you can see that I want it to do 2-5. I don't want it just scene 20 or scene 18. If you can see that is actually the order number, I want it to be 2-5. So in order to do that, I'm going to select my scene heading, and you can see down here, scene heading. And remember, that's what starts a new page. We're going to edit the scene number. So you have to have this selected, and you can just, it doesn't have to be fully selected. You can just have it clicked in that section. Edit scene number, and you manually enter 2-5. And whatever that is telling that header to pull that in. So that's what puts right there. So if I wanted to change that to scene, or let's say act 2, scene 5, see, that changes that. So whatever you put on that particular one is what's going to show up there. But I like using the Roman numerals and then a regular numeral without a space, 5, because I feel like that's cleaner. But you can do whatever you want. You just have to do it on each one. So you can go to your scene navigator here, and you can click on each one. And when you click on these, they're going to take you to the scene heading. That's what's telling Final Draft that this is the beginning of your new scene. So if you switch your scenes around, you're going to need to go back and do that manually. But you would have to do that anyway, because now it's not auto-filling this. So I type this in, scene 4. Nobody's doing that for me. So all of that is manual. So that's a little bit more work, but it gives you more control. So that's one way, or that's the only way that I know of to do that very efficiently. Okay, so that is header and footer. Get out of that. Now in the footer of your script, I like to put a date. This is not necessary. If you want to leave that blank, you can. You could also just type in whatever you want here. So if you wanted to put your web address, if you wanted to put your email address, if you want to put your name, Anything you put in here, these are predetermined things. But if you, so like date, that's going to automatically put today's date, and it will update it every time you open it. So every time you work on this, it's going to refresh that date to the current date. So if you're writing PDFs, that's nice because you can look at a PDF and tell when you edited that, what date that was, you created that PDF, if you will. Or you can have that completely blank. Keep in mind that if you put anything there, like your web address or your name or your email address, and you send to a blind submission, they're going to require that not be there. So you're going to have to be sure that before you send it, you go in and delete that out of your footer. Another thing under this document menu is the mores and continueds. If you want, let's say that there is a break, maybe your character has a very long monologue and it spills over into the next page, you can use mores and continueds, and it will automatically put these if there's something broken, so that you can see that so that your actor can see that continues. All right, let's see what else I'm gonna hit. Okay, let's do title page. This is important. So title page is under document here. It's also here on your main toolbar. So if you go to title page, I'm gonna zoom out of that a little. This is where you put your main information. So this is like pre-filled on that template that I gave you, but you can edit anything you want. So you would just put in all your information, whatever you want on there. You can add a website, you can just add whatever. These are also pre-filled in, not with my information, of course, but with just some generic on, well, I'll show you that. Might as well show you what that looks like over here. It's got a title page. There we go. Okay. So here's some generic info. So this is where you would put in your title, your writers, your contact information, your character descriptions. You put that in here. You can do this however you want. This is just kind of a standard way that these are done. I have a settings page. If you don't want a settings page, you don't have to do that. You can just delete all of this. This is a page that is important as a musical writer to have, is your musical numbers. So this is something that will change a lot, and just be sure that when you export this as a PDF and get ready to submit it, that you go back and you double check your page numbers for where your songs are spotted. If you'll look at, let's see, here, this is a song title, and this is how you're going to want to format that so that people know this is where your song starts. My recommendation is to put this song title where any intro music starts, not necessarily where your lyrics start. So if you're a accompanist, if you have some underscore or anything like that. Now, if your underscore is separate music and it would be like song 1 and then you have song 2 as the actual song, then you can put those in 2 different places. But if, let's say on this song 1, the underscore actually starts at the top of the scene, you would want to notate that in your stage directions here. And I would also put this up here. It just helps the pianist or whoever is working on that to know when the music starts. Okay, so let's go back here. So here, this is your musical numbers with the page numbers that they're on. If you want to add any other pages to this title page, you can just return down, and I know that's kind of a pain, but just return down and then it'll automatically create another page. On our script, I have a special thanks page on our title page. Let's see. You can see there I've got a special thanks. So you can add as many front pages as you want, but this when you print it as a PDF will go at the front of your script. Okay, let's see, header and footer, more title page, tools. Okay, let's go under tools. I don't really use a lot of these items under tools. Probably the only thing that I would say is if you have a script in Word or in some other script writing software, and you decide to purchase Final Draft and you want to bring that script into here, and you just copy and paste. I've done that with somebody's script before. Then you can take a whole chunk, and if you go under tools to reformat, it'll bring up this box. Instead of using your little toggle down here, it'll bring up this box that has all of those elements in it. So let's say that I wanted to change all that to dialogue. I can click dialogue. So you see all of those lyrics now change to dialogue. But I don't want to do that. And always remember, on almost any software, that Command Z is undo. It's like the best button ever. It's also under edit most of the time. So if you need to undo that, just go to undo. So that's under tools. Format assistant. This is a little more, I don't think you'll ever really need to do this. This is just to make sure that a character isn't followed, like characters must have dialogue. So you don't have a rogue character name that doesn't have anything to follow. You don't really need that. Really, the reformat is where those elements are going to be found in chunks. I don't use any of this. Collaboration, that's available if you want to collaborate. It's also here in the toolbar. You can collaborate in real time if you and a co-writer are working on something. Sometimes it's easier to just host it on Dropbox or keep it on Dropbox, and people are working off the same script if you want, or doing different versions. Maybe they can highlight in different colors. Or if you absolutely want to get on at the same time and work on it, then you can do that if you want to look together as if you're doing a Skype call on your script. That's what collaboration is. And you can find some tutorials on that online if you need some help on that. Okay, so production, we already talked about scene numbers. You want to use this edit scene number. That's going to be the one that you use most of the time. Let's see, go back to the scene, top of the scene. Again, that is here. Okay, now that we've gone through all of those, let's see how our time is really quick. Edit scene number. Okay. One thing that's really cool that I used for the first time at our reading that is a little bit more advanced, and so I would save this for another time, but this revisions and revisions mode and lock pages. If you're going into a reading setting, which if you're looking at Final Draft right now, you may not be quite ready for that yet, but when you get to a time when your Final Draft script is ready to go to a reading, during our reading, we had about 7 days, and in the room during rehearsals, I had Final Draft open, and the director would say, change this, change this, change this, mark this, change this lyric. And I was editing inside of my Final Draft file, but when we made those changes, we would print out just those pages. So to not mess up the flow, if you can imagine, if I added a whole new verse to a song, if we expanded a song or if we cut a song, the page number would be off after deleting that. Well, you don't want to give that to actors where the page numbers are now all, because you're just going to print what changed, and that could be very confusing. So if you go to production, which production is when you're in some sort of production, reading production, you're going to go to lock pages. And that will make the page numbers not change. No matter what you do, the page numbers will not change. So that's helpful when you get to that point. Okay. All right, let's go back to file. Very easy here. You've got new, open, save as PDF. That's what you're going to use when you're printing to PDF. It will automatically include your title page unless you click this and tell it not to. So if you're printing a blind script and you don't want to include any of your title, you want to start straight at the script, you can do that. However, it will cut off your all of your title pages. So your character descriptions and your musical numbers. So it will cut all of that. Title page is all of the things that are not script. So if you're needing to submit blindly, I would suggest that you go ahead and make the PDF with the title page, and then edit your PDF, like delete a page out of that. Okay, so really quickly, let's just go through this little toolbox right here, which you've already covered. If you want to edit the toolbox, this is the standard. You right click on it and you can customize the toolbar. If there's something that you just really love, if you want to use their thesaurus or anything that, if you just like changing that, like that control, then you can drag things in and out of this toolbox to customize that. I think I've always used the standard one, so I don't think that's super necessary. Let's see. Oh, one thing I did want to show you that's cool that I think we missed is, let's go under dialogue. Do you see this little plus that comes up right here? This is alternates. So if you think, I'm not sure I like that dialogue right there, I think I want to see if maybe there's something, maybe try something else. Where'd my little thing go? There it is. I'm going to click on the plus, and that allows me to write maybe a different sentence. So maybe it's time for candy. So maybe I want to just think about that. And then here you can see when you go back through, okay, I've got a couple of ideas for lyrics, for dialogue here. Do I want him to say this? Do I want him to say this? And I don't know why it's not letting me click out of that. There we go, just click out of it. Okay, so that's called alternate, for alternate dialogue. So that's another thing that you can use. All right, the last thing that we're gonna do really quick, because this is more for film. If you've done any research or if you've been in film before or looked at film scripts, the beats and the structure points of film usually correspond to certain pages in the script. So Steve Cuden is a friend of mine. You've probably seen some articles from him on our site. And he talks about that, you know, if you watch a film, there's a certain, like almost to the minute, that certain structure points hit throughout the show if it's structured well. So this story map here is where you're going to see your pages. So this bar is all of your pages. And you can see here that I have 120. Now, let's see where that is. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. I don't even know what I just did. Omitted. See, thankful for Command Z. Okay. Let me see where that is. I don't ever use this. Right click to change or under document. There it is. Okay, there it is. Change target script length. So a typical 2-hour musical is about 120 pages long, which corresponds to like a minute a page, sort of. Okay, so if you want to shoot for 120 pages, you can do that here. Again, that's under document, change target script length. So that's what this is. And you can see here, this black means I didn't get that far. So I'm only I go to the very end, 116 pages, really 115, because that was after bows, 115 pages. One thing that you can do on your beat board is, let's see, I guess that was the other one. Okay, so let's say that I want a new structure point. And I want this to be inciting incident, Harry leaves, or just Harry is deployed, because that's the inciting incident on our show. If I want that to occur at a certain point, then I can drag this to the page number that I want it at. And you can see that, so I have that, see page goal, let's see if I can make that bigger. There we go. Page goal 21. So I'm thinking, okay, about page 21 is when this needs to happen. Again, that's very structural. And if you want to go ahead and, you know, plot out your 7 plot points and figure about what page they should hit, it's a good guide, but it's just a guide. So it's just something to help you plan from the beginning. This isn't something that I would probably do after my script is already started. I wouldn't go back and do this to my script, this particular script now. But if you're just brainstorming and thinking about those and you want to go ahead and put those things on the timeline, you can do that. And if you hover over it, you can see it'll do that. If you do a new beat, let's say Ben creators. And you drag that up. The beats go under and the structure points go over. And if you want to move that structure point, you just drag it and it'll change the page. So that's something you can do kind of up front before you really get going. Okay, so that was like a really quick, really quick. Let's go back to my script view. Actually, I'm just going to hide that for now. And I'll bring you guys back up and we'll see what questions I can take. Let me unmute everybody. If I can figure out how to do that. How about I just stop my share? We'll just do it that way. There we go. And unmute all. Actually,
Just a question.
Okay, hold on just a second. I'm gonna have you unmute yourself to talk. Otherwise, we may have some feedback. So if you have a question, just unmute and we can chat.
Look in the chat thing.
Okay, in the chat. Okay. Okay, I can answer. How do you reorder the sequence of schemes? Okay, let's go back to that. That I should have showed you that. Let's go into scene view.
Can you share your screen? Oh, there you go.
Yes. Okay. Yes, so when we go into scene view, you can see that the scenes are here. And again, this is when we were in the Navigator, this is where those are coming from. So if I want to reorder scenes, I can just drag it. But notice that it does not change the number of the scene and it doesn't change the heading of the scene. It does put it in a different order. So if I go back to my script, that's page 101. Let's see if it takes me there. Yes. Okay, you can see, and I'm also in revisions mode. Okay, so just so you know, if you're in revisions mode, anytime you change anything, it's gonna put a star here to let you know that changed. If all you have to do is uncheck that to not do that. So you can see that it did move that scene and it changed it to that page number. But if I go to the scene before that, I have Act 2, Scene 7, Act 2, Scene 6. So I have to go in and manually change that. I would also want to go under Edit Scene Number, and I'd want to change that. So you can reorder, let's see. You can reorder under Scene View. You can drag them all you want to, but you will have to go in and manually edit the scene numbers and the scene headings. Okay.
Hey, Holly, I've had trouble with that, changing the scenes around like that and then trying to read, make if I move scene 6 or whatever, changing that, it'll actually delete. Like if there's another scene 6, it'll delete that scene. And so you have to think ahead and change it so that so that doesn't happen. Yeah,
it's probably a good idea to just be a little bit troubleshooting proactive when you're doing that. I haven't had that problem before, so I don't know. I haven't had that. I'm trying to think if I've actually tried to do that. I feel like I have. I think, in fact, I could probably, well, I'm not going to try to do it now. But yeah, if you wanted to do that, if you were changing it and you wanted to change scene 6, but you already had a scene 6, you might change it to 6.5 and then, just use a different number so you're not duplicating. But I haven't had that problem, but yeah, you might need to think ahead on that if it's doing that.
Can you cut and paste from the scene view?
Just let's see. From the scene view? No, you cannot. This is only an ordering. So you can drag scenes around, but you can't do that. You can also, I believe, you can reorder from here. So let's put me 3 across. You can also drag the note cards around. If you want to do that, again, that's not going to change the scene heading, but you can change it here. So if you want to manually change that so you can see them.
That will change your pages, that will move things around?
Okay, so it will only change the scene heading. So just remember to keep in mind that the scene heading is text. The scene number is a number. So this is a scene heading. That doesn't, it's just like arbitrary text. It's not connected to anything. So it doesn't, I could put this is scene blue and it would be scene blue. So it's just text. Where your scene numbers, the actual numbers happen, which are scene number here, is up under scene numbers. And you would have to be in script view to change that.
I have a question about importing something other than Final Draft and trying to like word from word, or even doing it in rich text and importing it.
Okay.
Is there a simple way of being able to do that? Or I'm probably doing it wrong, but I have to redo the script all over again.
That's kind of what you have to do. I did that for somebody, and yes, it was basically a copy and paste, and then you have to reformat it. So yeah, there's not a good import way to just hold. If there's an element in Word, let's say that, your paragraph styles, which is the same thing as kind of elements in Final Draft, are paragraph styles. They don't automatically sync. So you do have to go in and redo all of that. So yeah, that's kind of a drag. There's not a real easy way to do it. But you can go through and you just click, like you can just change it as you go. So if it was all arbitrary text, you would go to, this is where that, where was that? Reformat is nice. This is what I used when I did that before, is you can, let's say that one's already character, but let's say I click character and I make that a character, it automatically jumps to the next one. So if I wanted, let's just say I'm going to make them all dialogue. It automatically jumps to the next. So you don't have to keep clicking in and clicking out and clicking in. It'll automatically jump. So now if I wanted to previous back up, I want that a parenthetical, that's dialogue, that's parenthetical, that's dialogue. So that's how I did that one, is this is just a way to kind of keep it moving. So that's probably the easiest way to do that.
Holly, I've got 2 questions, if I may.
Sure.
One is, in general, how does your template differ from the Dramatists Guild template? And the second question is, I've done this in the past, but it's been a while and I seem to remember it was difficult. If you want to have 2 side-by-side dialogue columns, or really lyric columns,
yes,
how do you do that?
Okay. The Dramatists Guild versus mine, there's just a little bit of visual cleanness that ours has. And the Dramatists Guild is fine, it works. But the submissions that I have sent using our template, but before I even had a template and it was just what I used, I asked a bunch of the submission theaters and opportunities, what they prefer, and they told me. And then I've had a lot of people who would write back and say, thank you so much for having your script formatted correctly. It was so easy to read. So I just thought, okay, they like this one, so I'm going to keep this. And I think there's just some visual things that may be slight spacing issues, and it's not really a huge structure. Like, it's not that different as far as the big pieces. It's more just an aesthetic, visual, easy to read kind of thing. I'm a designer, so my day job is I do graphic and web design, so I'm very privy to visual things. So I think it's just maybe some of those things that are a little different. As far as the dual dialogue, that's a great question. Let me show you how to do that. Okay, let me take that down. This is a very helpful thing, and I actually, let me see. Okay, I did use it in one version of our script, but not this one. So let's say that you can do that with lyrics because people shouldn't really talk at the same time. So let's say, let me get into some lyrics. There we go. Okay, let's say that I'm gonna make, I'm gonna make Cammy sing that character. Okay, so I want Ben and Cammy to sing these things together at the same time. So sometimes you might have like a contrapuntal, melody where they're singing at the same time. So you're going to select both of those, and then under, let's see where that is. Why can I not remember where that is? I think I have it marked. Dual dialogue under format. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. So here's where we have to trick Final Draft into doing this for us. You can see here that it's not, if I select this, it's not available. That's because Final Draft in its native form does not recognize lyrics. So it recognizes dialogue. This is a bit of a pain, but it can be done. So you're going to select this, select those lyrics, and we have to change them to dialogue. So select it, change it to dialogue. And then this is where, when we talked about, you can change individual font issues here, because dialogue, when I type in lyrics, it's all caps, so it doesn't matter. So you can see sometimes it gets a little weird on what I'm typing in. I'm gonna go to style, all caps. I'm gonna pretend those are lyrics. And then I've got to make this dialogue. So I can go here under dialogue, and then I want to make those look like lyrics. So style, all caps. So now they look like lyrics, right? But they're not, and you don't have to worry about the indentation because they're fixing the kick side by side anyway. So now I go up here, where is it? Well, no, it's still not. I must have one. Hold on. There it is. Let's see if it lets me do it. No, it's because he's not.
Hey, Holly, I think you have to have a character name.
Yep,
Above the dual dialogue.
Yep, that's the problem. Okay. Let's see if it'll let me do that with a continued. There we go. Okay, so now you can see it's not grayed out anymore. Now, if I do that, it's going to kick them side by side. And that's what you're looking for. But you can't edit that. So if you need to edit it, let's say that I need to go back and fix something, and I don't want her to say spinning, and I go back and I'm turning, whatever, it puts it back, and when I click out of it, it doesn't automatically kick it back to dual dialogue. So I have to go and select it and do it again. So as long as I don't edit that, it will hold. But if I need to edit it, as soon as I double click it, it's going to kick it back. So not ideal, but it works. It just kind of takes some tweaking.
Thanks very much for that. And if I can make a suggestion.
Sure.
Since you lead a group of musical theater writers, you might have a little more impact if you were to get in touch with Final Draft and suggest that they make that a little easier for us.
That would be a good feature to have. Yes. Yes, that's a great idea. I will note that.
I have a question.
Sure.
I have never purchased Final Draft. Does it matter if I purchased Final Draft 10 or 11 to start, as the starter?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Either one.
I mean, one's less expensive than the other because it's the lesser version of it, but it's going to have to be upgraded as when, you know,
you don't have to upgrade those as soon as an upgrade comes out. You can see here, I'm operating Final Draft 10, so I don't even have 11 yet. So it's not, sometimes a feature might be, really worth upgrading for. It's really like any other software. If you have a certain operating system that, one ceases to work with, sometimes that forces an upgrade. But Final Draft 10 is fine.
And it's 30% off that one as well.
I will have to look and see if you can, or if you can order that off of the website, then yeah, it should be.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we're gonna wrap up. If you have any other questions, I'm going to, I'll send a follow-up email. I'll send that code. So well, I'll go ahead and tell you if you wanna write it down. So the code for Final Draft, and it's just our code, is MWFD20. So like Musical Writers Final Draft 20, MWFD20. And that will get you 30% off. Now, if I were you, I would go ahead and do the 11. With the 30% off, that's a pretty good deal. And if you want to, you can always go on. They have a 30-day trial. So if you want to do that and just see if you like it, and if it's too overwhelming, then you don't have to, you don't have to get it. But they do have a 30-day trial. So that's always something good.
They have online tutorials, like a lot of things I learn on YouTube, my Pro Tools and everything I can do on YouTube. Do they have online tutorials? Because this was a lot of info when you never used it. So if you needed to review.
Yes. The Final Draft website does have some videos that are really great that take just small chunks of different features, and they'll kind of go through those. So yes, now they're only YouTube videos, so it's not written out, which kind of depends on your learning style, if you like to read something or if you want to sit and watch a video. So theirs are just videos, but they are helpful.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Holly, there are a few more questions in the chat. You could just
Okay.
be sure to look at those on that would be great. Thanks.
Okay. What I'll do is I will look at the chat and I will send out an email that has the code again. I'll also send the Final Draft template out to all of you, and I'll just include that in the email, or I may include a link or something, but it'll be free. And then if there's any questions that are in the chat, then I'll answer those in the email. Feel free to respond to that email if you have any personal questions that you just, don't want to go to the group, or anything like that you just want a little bit more insight about. I'll be happy to answer what I can. And if I can't, then I'll get a hold of Final Draft and see if we can figure it out.
One more really quick question. Is the 30%, is there a deadline for it? Or I know there's a 20% off that ends today.
Is there a deadline?
Yeah, for using the 30% discount code.
It's good all year. So it's good for 2020. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
When we get your template, how do we import that into Final Draft?
You just open it. So you can just go to File, Open, and it'll open as if it's a script already there, and you'll just replace it. The elements are already pre-done. So it'll have some scripts. So like when I showed you, let me see. Are you still seeing my screen?
No.
I still see it.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. It's on my other monitor. Yes.
Okay. So if I go into Open, this would be what you have, and you just open it. And it will have some pre-populated text and stuff in there so that you can see, like, lyrics are in parentheses there, so you know that's a lyric element. And, I don't know if that is me. I don't think that's me. Anyway, that's how that will come, just like that. And you can delete all of this, but your elements will be the same. Does that make sense?
Hopefully it'll make sense when I try it. If it doesn't, I'll write to you.
Okay. It's pretty easy to figure out. Just open it up and go. You just replace all of this with your stuff. Yeah.
I guess what I'm asking is, I would open Final Draft first, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And then from within Final Draft, open your template.
Yes. Yes. Or you can drag Final Draft to, you can drag the template to the icon of Final Draft. It'll automatically open it. But yes, you just open it. You don't have to put it in a template folder somewhere. You just open it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for coming.